Welcome to the Advancement Podcast. Our mission is to reach the lost in America by advancing leaders and churches so that communities are transformed. Join us as we discuss how to stay healthy as leaders, work in teams, and lead change. Come on, let's advance together.
All right, welcome back to another episode of the Advancement Podcast. Hey, if you enjoy what you're listening to, if you could click subscribe on wherever you're listening to us, that way you get everything coming to you on Tuesday and Thursday. If you have time, if you could go rate us on your podcasting platform, that would help us out a lot. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, click like or subscribe. Again, we come to you every Tuesday and Thursday. My name is Todd Barham, the host of the Advancement Podcast. Here with the lead consultant of Advancement, Timothy Dominic Ware. How you doing, Tim? You doing good today?
I'm good. What is this? Are we doing our?
I went into my baseball announcer voice apparently there.
Well, I think we did that, but first we were doing Looney Tunes or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I felt like Porky the Pig. I couldn't say a word.
Yeah. Did you really watch? Did you ever watch that?
Oh, all the time when I was a kid. Yeah, nonstop, man. Porky Pig, Pepe Le Pew,
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny, Donald Duck. Yeah, man. I was all about
Donald
that.
Duck.
Well, Daffy Duck. Excuse me. It's been a hot minute, Tim. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, I watched all that. Yeah, Looney Tunes were my jam when I was a kid. That's about all there was as far as cartoons. Unless you watch The Simpsons, which I grew up in a good church household in which I was not allowed to watch The Simpsons. So
Till he got older, then he started watching.
I tried it. It's not really my jam.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't really. Yeah, I didn't really feel it.
Your jam or
Yeah,
what?
yeah, it's not my jam. I'm sorry, I'm using these hip words with you. You know, it's to. I wore my red shoes again for you today, so you could make fun of them.
I wasn't gonna make fun of him.
Hey, but I picked you up from Discount Tire.
That's
I
right.
saved a brother in need.
Yeah. Well, you got to drop me back off.
Oh,
too.
okay. Well,
Like, pick up my truck.
Happy to do it. Happy to do it.
Yes.
Speaking of pickup, let's pick up where we left off. So if you haven't already listened, we're on episode 2 of a little string. So go back, listen to the episode from the last time. Tim, you want to recap them a little bit? Then we'll get into the next.
So I have a friend that I went to high school with, and he is not a follower of Christ, and we reconnected, and I've talked about him on the podcast, and he knows, and he's actually inspired a couple of our podcasts through our conversations, including this series. We were talking about, I don't remember what we were talking about, and I made a comment that as we get older, there are things that we just recognize with age that we wouldn't say now that we would say when we were younger, that we would say now that we wouldn't say when we were younger.
Yeah.
They're just, there's things that happen with maturity, and he's known me, and I've been a lifelong believer, and that kind of shocked him, and he just said, what would you not say? What would you not do now that you wouldn't have done 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
And I gave this list of stuff, and in the conversation, I used the word. I said to him, my attitudes and these things going on in my life, they were sin.
Yeah.
They were areas of sin that God was dealing with and that God wanted to deal with and that I'm still on a journey with. And as I thought about that, last few episodes back, I talked, and when we were talking about evangelism, I talked about just sharing your story.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in the midst of sharing this the story of my transformation, part of my ongoing transformation with Jesus. And I started thinking about these things. I was already a leader. I'd been working, I'd been a leader in the church. I'd been all these things. And I was probably about 40 when some of this journey started.
Okay.
And this leg of the journey. And there were some things that I needed to learn that really affected not just the way I treat people. Most of it was around the way I treat people. What I said to my friend was that in my heart, my attitudes were bad. I was judgmental and I was angry.
Okay.
And I was very hard on people. even if they didn't sense it, or if I didn't openly express it. Most of them could sense it.
Yeah.
And so as I pondered that, I thought, this is something that these topics, these ideas, they're simple, they're classic, they're not original to me, but I know I'm not the only person on this journey. And as I know that there's some guys that are millennials and Gen Z that listen to the podcast, I hope that you can learn what I'm learn at your age, and what I had to wait a lot longer to learn. Learn it while you learn these things from me now, so that you don't have to suffer some of the pains that I've had to suffer. And so last time we talked about one of the transformational principles was seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Mm-hmm. And you got that from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Yeah,
that's where that phrase comes from. The second one that I want to talk about is also a chapter in this book. It's one of the habits, and it's win-win. Now, I don't necessarily, it's exactly like exactly like Covey writes, but it's still the idea, the arrogance and narcissism that had developed over a lifetime, developed over the first 40 years. I place more value on myself than I did on people.
Okay.
And I'm highly competitive, Todd. I don't know if you ever knew that about me.
Never noticed.
Never noticed that.
I'm sad that you don't watch sports anymore, because I don't get any texts from you anymore about how'd those Texans do, or
there's no NFL yet,
or
so
how'd those Astros do, which, the Rangers have been terrible this year, and you've never once texted me. So
I have not. I thought I did put a text in. I thought I did text about the fact that I turned on the TV and I thought the Rangers were playing the Astros, because the Rangers had copied the Astros. They wearing those orange uniforms that look like Houston's.
Really? No, they don't have orange. They have a powder blue.
No, they had an orange one too.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Well, they have an all red one, but I don't know if they have an orange.
It was looking pretty orange, man.
Maybe it's time for a new TV, Tim.
Maybe I was out when I saw it. I was in some restaurant or something. Anyway,
I'll have to look it up.
But anyway, I grew up playing sports. I grew up in a family. I have 3 brothers, and we competed at everything. My dad was competitive, and he would play games, and we did. You don't play to lose.
Right.
When I got married, Rachel, they all were like, y'all play cutthroat. I said, no, this is just, you play to win. This is called playing to win. Games were, we do it for fun. But then Tim showed up, and yeah, but it's more fun when you win.
Yeah.
The win is the most fun.
Right.
Wow.
You play to win the game, right?
That's right. Winners have the most fun.
Yeah.
That's the way I was raised.
Right.
I mean, remember in the movie Moneyball, they've lost the game and they're in there partying in the locker room.
Uh-huh.
And Brad Pitt's character, he comes in and he grabs a bat and he smashes the radio.
It's been a hot minute. I don't remember.
He smashes the boom box and goes, y'all know just goes off. What's there to celebrate? And they're all like, well, he said, this is what a losing locker room should feel like. I just see that. That's kind of the whole attitude that I carried. And with that, when I was dealing with people, even if I'm coaching or consulting, or when I was a business, in the business world, and I was supervising, over 200 people or whatever it was on the job site that day, I'm there and I'm going, y'all are here to help me win.
Yeah.
This is about my victory. It doesn't matter if you win.
Right.
I win. And sadly enough, I had learned some of that in the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pastors, often the way we treat staff is, you're here to help me accomplish what God's asked me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And this became me, and I was the world's worst at not seeing the opportunities for others. It was all about, well, what can you do for me?
Right.
And because of that attitude, there were people that had a lot of success. There were guys. I had guys that used to work for me when I was in the secular world. They loved to work for me because we always won.
Right.
We won. Oh, there are other contractors, and there were some other people in our organization that they didn't necessarily like me, but because I always won.
Right.
And I wouldn't do things immoral. I wouldn't do things illegal. And I wouldn't necessarily do things that were unethical. But I would do things that were unchristian.
Yeah.
The way I treated people. And I've left bodies in my wake.
Yeah.
That are wounded because of the way I treated them. And
so how do we balance this? This question's coming up in my head because I'm similar to you. I'm a very driven person.
Yep.
I like to win.
Yes, you do.
I do. And my wife always yells at me to let my kids win. And I said, well, they got to learn how to lose first.
You need to learn how to be a good loser.
Yeah. Got to learn how to be a good loser.
I hate participation trophies.
So how in the church, because obviously here at Advancement, we push excellence in the church. We want the church to be excellent. So how do we push excellence, but yet still value and care for people? Because I think that's where the rub in this is, because many of the people would come up, many people that would be, that are the drivers would say, yes, I want to care about people, but I also don't want to forsake excellence in my organization. So how do we walk that line?
Well, first of all, we have to define the win.
Okay.
And the win may not be the most excellent thing.
Okay.
That's why this idea of win-win, I have to look and say, just if I'm the only one that wins, or the things that are important to me are the only levels, measurements of the finish line and victory.
Yeah. If
it's all tied to what I think is important, then anyone who doesn't think like me didn't win.
Okay.
I got certified as Myers-Briggs as a Myers-Briggs type indicator interpreter for advancement and things, and was in the room with a whole bunch of people from business. I was there were two of us there. There were ministry people who went together, and everybody else were business people. And we were the only two that had this personality.
Yeah.
And what I learned in there is all these different personalities. There were people that when we had to describe, when you started looking at describing our personality and how in leadership, there was a phrase that one of us used, that people are tools to help us accomplish what we need to get there.
Yeah.
And there were some people in the room that were so highly offended at that phrase. Oh, they made fun of us. These are the preachers. Oh, it's true.
Sure.
But God created people differently. He created us with diverse gifts and skills, and we're better. Paul writes in the Corinthians that we have the mind of Christ, and it's not the language there does not necessarily mean that we, meaning Todd does and Tim does. It means that there's something when we come together, there's a collective component that we together are better.
Mm-hmm.
We're better. I mean, there's an overarching theme in the book of 1 Corinthians about unity, and there's this unity message woven throughout, and so there's this we component, and I have to allow, when I'm defining the win, what someone else's view of a win looks like. I have to let other people speak into the win and help determine. Now, what I say is a win and what I'm putting the highest value on may actually be offensive to someone else, and it may steal their win from them.
Right.
I may have to So I now have to ease up a little. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to let off totally and say we're not going to do that, but it may mean that I can't push it so hard, because now if I'm stealing the win from somebody because it's important to me,
Right.
now I violated this. Now I violated what the Lord's asked us to do.
Right.
You know, this laying down my life for my brother, this carrying someone else's burden, this preferring one another above myself, this piece of humility as a leader, where I have to go, okay, well, what do you think a win in this situation is?
Yeah.
Let's take a moment and hear a word about advancement.
Timware has been a huge benefit and blessing to me personally, as well as to my church. When Tim and I first connected in a coaching setting, my church was running in the 130 range. We now run 260, plus we have a really strong online audience. We went through a process of rebranding and changing our name, focusing on our vision, and shifting our culture in a lot of arenas. Tim was invaluable to talk us through that. He came out and met with our team. He was a huge, huge blessing. I highly, highly recommend Advancement.
Now let's get back to the podcast.
So I think what I hear you say, Tim, did you like that? Did you like that? Use that?
Yeah, he's pulling back to he's referring back to the last episode. If you didn't catch that, he's doing some active listening. Good for you. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. Is the best way to look towards excellence in our organization.
Best way?
Well, okay. Let me finish the sentence. Active listening.
That was good.
Okay.
I feel the ding. I take it.
Okay. So the best way that you are saying, that I understand, is to, in order to make people feel a part of the process and not alienate anybody, make them feel like they're pushed to the side, is to define the win as a team or as a leadership, and all work towards that win so that everyone is invested in the win together.
Yeah, I think
that
that's
kind of what you're saying.
There's all this idea of team,
Yeah.
because we're not designed to do things alone. That's an entire lesson I've had to learn. We'll do a whole podcast on.
You hear that, Pastor? You're not designed to do things alone.
But sometimes it's just easier.
Sure, it's easier. Yeah, because then you don't have to deal with opinions. Good grief.
Oh yeah, and the other side is, here's the thing: what some other people see as a win, I think, why? How's that even?
Yeah, why are you so excited about that?
What does that even? That doesn't excite me at all.
Yeah.
But isn't that
things that I get excited about? My team's like, woo, woo, like whatever. People, you know,
but
get right with Jesus.
So we have to allow people to speak in. We have to make room for everyone to win. And I think another piece in this that we have to recognize as pastors and as leaders is that the joy and the energy of those around us getting a win that matters to them.
Yeah.
Actually, if we facilitate some of those victories, it earns us credibility.
Yeah.
And it strengthens our team. And then, you know what? There's that law of sowing and reaping. Now, when I need to win, they're going to help me win.
Yeah.
So this idea of win-win is really about working in harmony together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a musician, and a C, a E. Let's see, it'd be a C, an E, and a G. That makes a nice little C chord.
C major. Yep.
That's a C major chord, and we could throw an A in there.
Yeah.
Creates a little
dissonance.
Might
be pretty for a little bit.
Right?
But your ear wants you to go back to the.
But your ear wants you to go back.
Yeah,
that's right. So you can't do it too long. But the point is that usually I like what I like.
Yeah.
And I want what I want. So this was a matter of me laying down myself, laying it down. Now, how did I do that? I had conversations with some people where I had to go apologize.
Yeah.
moving forward, I had to, in the early developmental pieces and developing the discipline, I created a checklist, and on my list was, in my process was, where are other people's wins?
Mm-hmm.
Have I identified other wins so that I could, check the list off, so that and it wasn't about checking the list. It was about me being accountable, because the next thing I did was I went to my team.
Yeah.
And I had to say, okay, I had to make room and say, I'm sorry, I've blown this, and I need you guys to help. We have to determine these things together.
Right.
And if I start overriding you, I give you permission to say, pause.
Yeah.
Now, look, there are some moments where the win is where not everybody's going to be happy.
Right.
And I understand that. And there are some times when I get my way, but I have to make room. And what I wasn't doing was I was not making room. Even at home, I wasn't always making room for Rachel to get a win, because I had to win.
Right.
I mean, it affected my marriage. By the time I started learning this, I had, my kids were getting into being teenagers, and they were older, upper elementary, beginning junior high, and there were things that I had, because you got to learn to lose when they're little.
Yeah.
And because of the way there were things there are horrible memories I have in my past. There are things that that happened in my parenting that I have spent a decade trying to redeem.
Yeah.
Because of those moments.
Right.
So I had to communicate. I had to apologize. I had to make accountable. And then I also I got with mentors and coaches. And the third thing that I did was I made myself accountable to somebody else to allow them to work with me. Okay, what are you doing? In this process, for those who happen to be watching on YouTube, I brought my daily prayer thing. I have a couple of different journals, but in this one, part of what I have done is I have a list of things that I pray over myself and pray over people. And one of the things that I have in here is Galatians 5, and I say I'm maturing in my walk because now it's patience.
Yeah.
It's gentleness, it's self-control. And then I've got in here from Philippians 2 and Proverbs 11 and Proverbs 15. I've got this number of things, a number of scripture listed in it. And under that list, it says, I'm becoming a man who prefers others. Yeah. A person who walking and living in humility. And so I have notes in this journal that go back to 2013.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been using this, making prayer lists in it. That's what this one is for, is my prayer lists. So I've got this, actually, the first date I have is 2012. So for probably close to that amount of time, I've been praying over this. I want to live in humility. I want to prefer others. So this is a spiritual discipline, not just a natural discipline.
Right.
Because I said it was sin in my life. So Jesus had to work in me. So let's be clear that this is not just, you can develop the discipline as a leader, but but discipline didn't change my heart. There was a heart issue that needed to be worked on in me. And that's what that part is.
I think part of the problem with this is the disconnect between knowledge and getting it in our heart. That distance from the brain to the heart is the biggest flaw that we have sometimes. We know these things. Mm-hmm. We know we should do them, but in the heat of the battle, sometimes we forget to do them.
Yeah. when you're on a journey of spiritual transformation, people don't know what's going on in your heart, where you're struggling. But Jesus said, out of the mouth, the abundance of the heart speaks. So the way we behave, the way we treat people is probably the greatest evidence of where our heart really is.
Yeah.
It saddens me that the people I know that are the farthest from Jesus often see Christians as mean, or mad. And if that's the way they see us,
why would they ever come to Christ?
Yeah. And in my heart, when I began to realize that some people that my witness, people that I was being that way, and I had some people say that, I realized that in my heart, this was a heart issue in me.
Right.
That's why I define it as a sin that I'm working out still to this day.
Yeah.
So
cool.
What's your takeaway from that?
Two things you said. We sometimes win at the sake of other people. I've been guilty of that in the past for sure. And then we have to define the win. I think that's been the biggest key for me is with others to not, when you have difficult situations with people, if you have a clearly defined win, you can meet on that common ground. Even if you disagree with things that are going on, you can meet on the common ground of our win is to bringing others to Christ, advancing the church, advancing his kingdom.
Well, when I was at my MBTI training, the person who was leading the seminar had been on church staff somewhere, and they had worked for this great big event, and they'd accomplished the goals at the end, and the pastor was kind of like me, and he was already, okay, we're moving on to the next thing. And this staff person, because of their personality type and their psyche and the way God had made them, the hard-driven leader had not planned. There was no moment to celebrate.
Right. And
so for them, for the staff person, the victory wasn't that the event went off without but for them, the big win was when the team got together and celebrated the win.
Yeah.
That's where it was the relational piece that carried the greater victory than the attendance and the money, and there was a relational component.
Yeah.
And that leader just overlooked that, and that staff person was wounded by it because they never got their win.
Uh-huh.
And so it's about understanding the fullness of what a win looks like, not just what it is, but it's fully understanding the depth of what it is. But anyway, all right.
Thanks, Tim.
So we'll see you guys next time on the Advancement Podcast.
If you would like to keep this content coming, all Tim and Todd ask is $1 per show. See how to give, maybe even sponsor an episode or series on the website advancement.cc. Until next week, continue to advance the mission of Jesus.